Hi everybody! So, the other day I showed you how you can make your own basket claw setting, and I promised you that I was going to show you a cheat way of doing it for those of you who decide it's a bit too fiddly, or just that you don't want to spend your time working on the more complicated shapes. I'm going to show you how you can achieve the same look with a fraction of the faff. So what I would say is it's very much a skill that's worth learning to do. Have a go at it if you've got the facilities and the time, because this means if you learn this technique you can set a whole variety of stones and it doesn't really matter about the shape or the size or what you're soldering it onto, because you'll be able to adapt those skills. But like I say, if you have a look at this, if I can hold it up, can you see, as I throw it on the floor, that looks exactly like the one I made the other day. So this is also a basket setting, but it's a pre-made one. So Kernowcraft very kindly sent this to me when they knew that I was going to be doing basket setting this month, because you can purchase from jewellery suppliers such as Kernowcraft lots of different types of pre-made settings. Some of them, there's an argument where people sort of say, oh, you can tell it's pre-made, a bit like putting pre-made ear wires on designs. Some people decide that it doesn't look as good if you've handmade something and then put a pre-made something else onto it, rather than making it all from scratch. I'm determined to lose this. But this little one from Kernowcraft looks exactly the same as the one that I made the other day. So that's where you've got to weigh it up. If you've got the time to make your own, great, but if you don't want to, perfect. The great thing about this one as well is it's a pre-notched setting. So I don't know if you can you see those tiny little notches in the claws? So that not only means has the setting already been made and it's perfectly straight, very cleanly, there's no messy joins that need sort of filing and sanding and things like that, but the notch to push over the stone is already in the wire. So it means that you're still making a piece of jewellery, in that you need to solder the setting onto something to turn it into a piece of jewellery, but you're not having to do the super fiddly work and file those notches in like we had to with this one. The downside of that is, if you have a stone that doesn't quite fit that shape, then you would need to adapt the setting anyway. But generally speaking, adapting the setting would mean either having to file out the inside of that top jump loop a tiny bit, which is not uncommon to have to do when you're making them from scratch anyway, or it would be that you might have to file those notches a little bit lower depending on your stone. But again, that's not uncommon. If you made it from scratch, you would have to do that yourself anyway. I'm just going to pop that in there. So eventually this stone that they sent me will be going into this setting. So for those of you who are interested, it's an 8mm round pre-notched setting and an 8mm round faceted stone. It's really pretty. You can buy a whole range of different types of settings, one for single stones, one for multiple stones. You can buy ones that have been made from tubing with areas cut away rather than from wire, like the basket settings that we've been looking at. And like I say, if you want to cheat even more, and I'm saying cheat just because is making life a lot easier. I don't actually believe in cheating. If anybody wants to use pre-made anything, I have no issue with that whatsoever. But you can also buy these settings as ready-made pieces of jewellery. So, the setting would already be attached to a jump loop or to earring backs or to a ring shank, whatever that piece of jewellery is going to be, and all you need to do is choose and add the stone of your choice. But in terms of today, I'm going to show you how to solder this little setting onto this ring band. Here I've got my ring band. I'm holding it in my third hand tweezers, so it's being held nice and secure for me. I'm going to take some borax my flux, and I'm going to paint it on the area that I want the setting to stick to, and then I'm going to paint the flux on the back of the setting as well, like so. Pop that air bubble, and then I'm going to take the setting and I'm going to pop it where I want it to sit on the ring band, like that. Next up, I'm going to take some hard solder. Now this is one of the questions I keep getting asked. I use hard solder for everything, so it's hard silver solder, and I'm going to put 2 bits on there, one on each side of the inside of the setting. So I'm going to drop the first bit in, push it up against the edge, take my second piece, drop that in, push it up against the opposite edge. So it is sat on the ring band, but it is touching the inside of my setting. I've got a delicate pattern running around the outside of this ring band, and I don't want solder seeping out all over it and flooding the nice pattern. So here I'm going to got some Tipp-Ex, but it's water soluble, which means I can paint it on anywhere I don't want the solder to flow, but because it's not solvents based, when it burns off it's not going to be giving me a headache and making me feel unwell. So the Tipp-Ex is basically just acting as a barrier, so it's protecting any area I don't want the solder to run onto. So because of that, it's important that I don't slop a load of Tipp-Ex inside the setting where I do want the solder to run to. Traditionally, these sort of techniques have been used for years and years and years, but traditionally people would use rouge. So you could either mix up powder into a paste and paint it on, or graphite pencil, basically anything to make an area dirty, because solder doesn't want to run where the dirt is. If you want to catch up on the soldering videos we did previously, you can head over to the Kernowcraft blog and you'll find them all up and online there and organised in a nice way. But now all I need to do is get this soldered. And if you remember from previously, both elements I'm soldering together, so the setting and the ring, need to be the same soldering temperature, but because the setting is so skinny and the ring so big, that does not mean heating them both the same amount. I need to concentrate all my heat on that ring band. Goggles on, torch on, and I'm just going to concentrate all the heat on the ring band, making sure that the flame is not pointing at the setting at all, and I'm just heating it very gently initially so that the flux or Tipp-Ex or any other thing on there that has moisture is not going to bubble and boil and knock everything out of position. And you see a little bit of smoke coming off there from the Tipp-Ex. Like I say, it is water based, but you want to have decent ventilation, so make sure you've got a window open or a door open. Right, now let's settle down. I need to concentrate on getting this ring band up to temperature. So I'm trying to get my ring band a nice pinky red colour, and then when it's at that temperature, that colour, I can start heating where the setting is as well. As you can see, I'm using a very small torch. A lot of people have been asking about this torch. It's just a super cheap cook's torch that I got online. And the reason I use this is not because I'm working with small fiddly things, it's because the small flame doesn't make the camera go out of focus as much as my bigger torch. So normally I would use my much bigger torch that you would have seen me using earlier in the project. Both torches will do the job. This little one just takes a lot longer because it's a lot smaller. Go. So now I need to cool this. I'm going to quench it in some cold water. Put be nice and cold now. Pop it down onto a cold surface, and that is all soldered. It just needs cleaning, so I'm going to pop it into my pickle pot and leave it there till it's nice and clean. One setting on a ring. So as you can see, literally all I've done is solder that pre-made setting on top of a ring band. So again, as simple as you can get. Or what I could have done, similar to the design we did the other day, I could have cut a piece away from the ring band and slotted the setting inside it, so it's more integral rather than sitting on top. It's just a design difference, it's completely up to you. But all I need to do now is pop my stone in and set it. I've popped my ring into my wooden ring clamp, my hand clamp. I'm going to take my stone and I'm going to pop it in from above, give it a little push. It should just slot into those notches if I put it in straight. Come on. There we go. Pop. Simple as that. So it's in there, it's nice and secure, but just to finish it off and so that these claws don't catch, I just need to set them same way as last time. So I've got either my pusher or the prong setting pusher, whichever you'd rather, and I'm going to push it up against that little prong and push it over the curve or the edge of the stone. Same directly opposite the side I've just done. Push and over, and then same on this side. Push and over, push and over. There you go, one basket set faceted stone ring. Very, very similar to the one we made from scratch the other day. But the difference is this little basket setting was pre-made and pre-notched, so I didn't have to solder those little jump loops into the basket. I didn't have to line everything up. I didn't have to file the notches ready for the stone. All that bit was done for me already. But what I did have to do was solder it onto something to turn it into a piece of jewellery. So I've still had to make my piece of jewellery. I just haven't had to spend the time making that basket. So I always think you should have the choice and know the difference, so you can decide how much work you want to put into each piece that you make, because there's lots of options out there, and I'm going to show you an even simpler option up next.